explain a little bit. So Initiative 91 you were saying that you changed the language in the title there. What did you specifically change? Wasn't it before prohibit trophy hunting? You're saying that wording has changed?
Yeah, so we actually got trophy hunting out of the title.
Oh.
And trophy hunting we deemed as a catchphrase to mislead a smoke and mirrors campaign from the proponents of those measures to mislead the general public that trophy hunting was legal. Their assumption or their illusion to the general public is that people went out there and cut the heads off of stuff or only salvage stuff, for supposed trophy parts. And they've acknowledged that through the arguments through the title board and the Supreme Court. They also acknowledged it with their second approach on Initiative 101. But we did get trophy hunting out of it. But people need to understand, Bo, if you look at the 4-page measure of Initiative 91, and you can find that on our website to where they don't have to go dig through the Secretary of State's website. They can find Initiative 91 on SaveTheHuntColorado.com. If they look at the measure, the only thing that we're allowed to address or attempt to change is the title of the measure. That's what's going to be on the ballot. The measure language will be in that blue book, that great big thick blue book that explains all of the ballot titles. So the title board, since it's called the title board, can only address the title. It has to have some specific requirements and criteria to be able to meet guidelines of what is allowed as far as the ballot measure. But we were successful through arguments to get trophy hunting out of it completely. So now it's a hunting ban. Well, it was a hunting ban before. It's just that they wanted to do their smoke and beers campaign and separate that out, even though it was still turning around and making sure that we didn't harvest anything, bobcat or mountain lion wise.
Yeah, and it's when I was reading that, when I read it, banned trophy hunting, and I started looking into it, I was like, this has nothing to do with trophy hunting. This is just hunting, and for the mountain lions and bobcats, and it's so one thing I want to address here before we get into that a little bit more. So a lot of the listeners of this podcast, a lot of them come from the eastern states and the East Coast, and it's like, why should that matter? And I'll ask you that question, but I also want to bring up, and first and foremost is a lot of the listeners here, although they live in Pennsylvania like myself and the other states throughout the East Coast and even into the Midwest, a lot of people go out west to hunt, and to hunt elk specifically, Colorado being one of the easiest places to be able to do so. That was my first place that I've ever went out west to hunt elk and with the over-the-counter tags in Colorado, and all of this affects that, first of all, and to be able to think about. But this is much larger than just Colorado, and specifically in Colorado, it's much larger than that, and that's why it's just the picking of at different things that the low hanging fruit, as they call it, with some of these things that people don't do as much as far as predator hunting and trapping and other things that you see in some of these different states. Is that correct from what you're hearing?
Yeah.
You want to expand on that a little bit?
The worst thing about what they've done is they've attempted to set, intentionally or otherwise, they intended on setting a precedent for the definition, the statutory definition of trophy hunting, which is not, to the best of our knowledge, you can't find a definition of trophy hunting in any state statute when it pertains to wildlife management and game and fish laws. What that would do, the way it's written, the definition of trophy hunting in the measure. Now, we can't get trophy hunting out of the measure. We just took it out of the title, as I explained. But the definition of trophy hunting means to intentionally kill, wound, pursue, stalk, or entrap a mountain lion or a bobcat. As soon as you set a precedent about what something means, and in this case, yes, it does pertain to mountain lions and bobcats, but it's not in statute now. If they define it in statute, they can turn around and go back and say, here's the precedent. Here's the precedent on wildlife management. Here's the precedent on trophy hunting. Their definition is what hunting is. If you look at game and fish laws around the country, hunting is defined as harvest or take, or maybe it's pursuit or whatever. That's hunting. But as soon as they start putting, caveat catchphrases onto things like trophy hunting, it's easily acceptable for the general public, or maybe the legislature, or maybe the Parks and Wildlife Commission, or maybe another commission in some other state to say, well, look, this is what they did. This is how they defined it. They're the first. They turned around and capitalized on making sure that everybody understood what trophy hunting was. So let's get rid of trophy hunting of bighorn sheep. Let's get rid of trophy hunting of moose. For that matter, let's get rid of trophy hunting for pheasants or turkey or deers or elk or whatever. Now, that's far-fetched to some people, but not when you start looking at legal definitions, not when you start looking at precedent-setting maneuvers and tactics and manipulation of the system. We are dealing with a hunting ban. I don't think any sportsman or woman in the country would be acceptable about a hunting ban of anything, unless there was some sort of management decision that was coming across that the science-based wildlife manager said we shouldn't do this because there's a possible extirpation or the depletion of the resource or the population or whatever. But I tell you what, setting a precedent for what they're trying to accomplish, they're going after the low-hanging fruit, bobcats and mountain lions, which are two of the most highly regulated species on the planet when it comes to North American model conservation efforts. We have more bobcats and mountain lions in North America now than what we did in 1900, and it's done through a highly regulated process. The testing, the requirements, the tagging restrictions, the check-ins, and all of the stuff that go into that. There's more data and science-based management information on bobcats and mountain lions than anything. If they can turn around and take the low-hanging fruit that not everybody engages in, even though there's more data on that than anything, and they can incorporate and manipulate that wording about two of the most highly regulated animals into a trophy hunting component, why can't they just turn around and go to another species? And to that point, I think it was August or September, Tris Zornio with the Colorado Sun newspaper had a headline that said, why are bighorn sheep, Colorado state animal, why are bighorn sheep any different than mountain lions? Now, this is before the Mountain Lion Initiative even came out. We fought and beat these guys back in 2019, 20, 21, and 22. This was their next measure, but they're already setting the tone. They're already setting the narrative, setting the place at the table about other species to get this ideology in people's minds about why are we trophy hunting our state animal? Why are we trophy hunting deer and elk? Why are we? It's not far-fetched when you look at the backside of what we've had to deal with in Colorado over the course of the last 15 or 20 years. And it's damn sure not far-fetched if you look at who is in charge and who is trying to play at this landscape, because they are putting the pieces in place for an onslaught that is beyond epic proportions based upon single catchphrase of trophy hunting versus hunting.